everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Micheline, and today I have a project that I've been working on for a couple of weeks, and that is Butterick B5682. I've made my last video showed my first take on those pants and the lessons learned from making that pair, and what I have for you today is how I make those adjustments. Before I get started on the adjustments, let me just tell you what those changes are and why I feel like I need them. First, I needed to overcome the crotch length because out of the envelope, the pattern does not come up to my waist. The front thigh needs a little bit more room, and so I'm going to be extending that just a little bit. I need extra width in the waist, and in order to achieve that, that's probably the area I need to make the least amount of changes in, and that is because when I raise the crotch length, I will then be moving the narrowest part of the pattern to the narrowest part of my body, which is my waist. And for that, I actually will only need to make a 1/4 inch adjustment. I want to narrow the pant leg. I find that the pattern as is a little too wide for my liking, and so I'm going to try narrowing the pant leg and see how that works out. After I make these adjustments, I'm just going to sew it up and see what happens. So the goal is to narrow that by about 1 inch. So for today's project, I'm in the kitchen and we're going to get started right away. I have already traced off my patterns using the technique that I have on how I trace large patterns. So here they are, already traced off. We have the back and the front, and we are going to be working from front to back, top to bottom. We're gonna first start on the back since that's the piece that needs the most work. So let me clear these out of the way. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is to add my length. And the length that I need to add is 1 inch, 1.5 inches to the front and the back. The first thing I'm going to do is extend the grain line as high up as I can, so that will help me match things up. Second thing I will do is, this is the length and shorten line. I'm going to make a cut all the way across on that line, separating the pattern into 2 pieces. Then I will take a piece of scrap paper and I will put it in between. And I'm gonna make sure I have some overhang on both sides. First thing I will do is tape it in place. And I usually try to leave the grain line untaped, only because I like for the marker or the pencil that I'm using to be marked directly onto the tissue and not on the tape, so that it doesn't smear. Okay, from there I will extend the grain line beyond it. Mark my 1.5 inches. Wait. And then put the pattern piece, attach the pattern piece. I can see the red mark on the paper, and I can just put these 2 right on top of each other. So there we go. 1. Again, I will try to keep where I need to, my matching points tape free. So now that I have my 1.5 inches added here, add some more tape. I need to extend, I need to connect my crotch points. So here to here. And to do that, I will use my curve ruler. This can be a little, it can take some time to find the right curve, but just take your time, play with it, see what you like, see what makes sense. And for this, I will use a pencil first, just to make sure I like what I see. So I'm gonna bring the camera around so that you guys can see where and how I matched up those points. I have my ruler here, and so what I did was I was able to connect this curve here and this curve here on the lines, and I made sure to put the seam line, draw the seam lines in ahead of time so that I would be making my changes at the seam line. Now I have a really good smooth curve continuing this line here, and it's being picked up here and then catching up here as well. So I hope you guys can see that right there, and it happened somewhere around here. And so now I will go ahead and redraw the stitching line 5/8 of an inch away from the new, redraw the cutting line, which is this line here, 5/8 of an inch away from the new stitching line. I really like this ruler because it is exactly 5/8 of an inch, and it makes drawing those curves, drawing in the seam allowance very quick and easy. So there we go. Based on this, this is the old cutting line, and this is the new cutting line right here. So now I will take that and it will be ready to go. So the next thing that I need to do is to add 5/8 of an inch to raise the back even more. And to do that, I'm going to go from, let me see, this is the last version that I did, and it's the gray pants that I wore in my previous video, or I previewed in my previous video. To extend the back here, that 5/8 of an inch, I measured down 2 1/4 inches from the seam allowance, or 3 inches from the top. So that is what I'm going to do again. 3 inches from the top will be right here. And I'm going to take that line straight across. So for this kind of thing, what I do is I find that grain line extension that I added in the previous step, and I match it up with a line on the cutting board so that will give me a straight line. And so that straight line is right here. So that straight line is right here. This is my pivot point, and so I'm going to slash across here to raise this back piece, center back piece, even more than it was raised when I added 1.5 inches. So to make sure that it doesn't rip, I will add a piece of tape right there so that I can cut straight across from the center back all the way to the side seam, and then from the side, from this point out. So doing that allows me to raise this piece as much as I need to, so that I can add as much as I need to add there. The reason I didn't do that down here is because I'm going to also raise the front piece the same amount of 1.5 inches. The front piece does not need this extra width here. Trying to find the right angle for the camera is a bit challenging. I'm in the kitchen because I can use the island here and I have a lot more space, but the lighting isn't as good in here as it is in the sewing room, at least not at this time of the day. Okay, so here I need to add 5/8 of an inch, and so I'll add that here, and then I will lower this wedge right here down to that line. I need to make sure that it's flat. Use my cell phone to make sure everything stays flat. Cell phone, ruler, whatever it takes. There we go. What I should have are my pattern weights. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so now it's time to adjust the dart. The dart point remained the same. However, there is some change in the shape of the dart. Okay, here again we have this this space that was created, and I need to straighten it out because we can't. Our bodies don't look like that, and so figuring out which is the best ruler to me sometimes is the biggest challenge. Okay. Okay, so before I move this away, I'm gonna swing the camera back around so you can see how I was able to create that, find the point on the ruler for this line. Here, and move it over a little bit. Here around 2 and 7.5, the points on the drawn in seam allowance match up perfectly. So that's how I know those lines will create a smooth line. And everybody's shape is going to be a little different. So you really have to work with whatever you think looks best on you and what you think looks best on the pattern. So now here you can see I have smooth lines going straight up from the base of the crotch curve all the way to the top. And so now there's one more piece. Don't forget to straighten out where the which way do I need to go? Don't forget to straighten out where the side seam is. So go ahead and tape that down, tape it back down. And here again, you use any of your curved rulers to make sure you have a nice smooth curve. Nice smooth cutting line. So there we go. The back is complete. Here is the new back of the pattern piece. 1.5 inch added there and 5/8 of an inch added there. And I could probably tape forever, but all right, it's time to move on to the front piece. The front of the pants have a couple of pieces that need to be taken into consideration besides just lengthening the crotch length. So I'm gonna take each of those separately, but they both need to have their own points of consideration. So here again, here is the lengthening shortened line. I'm going to cut across this line and extend it the same way I did with the previous, with the back. I'm gonna grab my extra paper by cutting off from the side. This is just enough. Before I cut through this, I want to show you guys something. And I didn't realize this until after I made my my last pair, that I didn't realize it was important. So when I cut across this to lengthen the pattern piece, I also push the fly up. So here's the fly for the to get yourself in and out of your pants. When I cut this up, it's going to raise the fly. And so what I will do after cutting this is to lengthen this fly. Otherwise, it just won't be long enough. I'm able to get in and out of my existing pair of pants, but I could definitely tell I could have used a little bit more room, and that room will be put into place once I bring the fly down the amount that I raise the crotch length. If I didn't make that clear, I'll show you here in a second. Okay, grab cans of tuna to make pattern weights. Beauty of working in the kitchen. Okay. Extend the grain line. Mark the amount that you need, which is, in my case, 1.5 inches. And then place the piece back on there. Here again, we need to correct the crotch curve. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Okay, correct the crotch curve. I will find points on the tissue where the things naturally line up. Okay, in this case, this point is exactly at the seam line, which is what I wanted, and it goes all the way up here. So I know that curve will be smooth and should look good on the body. So then I will do the same thing and add the seam allowance back. There we go. So I gained some width right here for the tummy, and that's the cutting line there. The next step in this is for me to lower this, what is this, the fly front. So I need to lower that by another, back by 1.5 inches. So the fly curve ends here. That is the base of it. I will extend that 1.5 inches. Forewarning, this is the very first time I've ever done this particular technique. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so from the seam line, that is at 24, is right on 24. So what I'm gonna do is slide the ruler down, put it right on 24, and replicate the curve. Now I'll just, let's see, where is this on the ruler? And it's almost a straight line. Let's see, is it a straight line? It's basically a straight line. So here's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna carry that line. It is a straight line from there. There we go. And we're just gonna smooth out that curve. I bet a more artistic person would probably just freehand that so that it's a soft, gentle curve. There you go. An alternative method to correcting that curve is to use the original pattern piece. Okay, so I have the original pattern piece attached to my traced pattern piece, and I'm gonna pin this sucker one to the other to make sure what's making it hard for me to see through this right now is I have the pattern interface because I have traced it off so many times in trying to get this pattern to fit and trying to do the adjustments. I think that's pretty spot on right there. So let's do this. There we go. Now to keep it from moving. Okay, so I worked out a better way to do the fly front, to trace off the fly front, because it was bugging me that I couldn't give a good description of it. So the alternative that I did was I put the pattern piece on the bottom and I can see through my tissue paper to the pattern piece. And so because I want to make sure that this looks good, I have that 1.5 inch mark line on there, so it crosses the seam line. So the seam line here crosses the 1.5 inch line, and I can see the original stitching line underneath, and that's what that actually is the stitching line for the fly front. And I just draw. Now I can just draw it in. There we go. I did it. So let me get a marker. So this is my new fly front. There we go. All right, so now getting in and out of these pants should be a whole lot easier. So if we do the fly front, you have to also extend the length of the fly facing. And so that is what I have here. I have already traced off the fly facing because I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing. There we go. Here is the fly facing. So I'm going to use that method right now to show you. So I have already traced off a line down the center. So what I'm going to do is, here we go. I like pins. They keep things from moving. So I have the line on the grain line so that it doesn't move, and I know things are straight. So just trace around it. I find that it's best to do the bottom first. So now you need to mark up 1.5 inches from the top of the pattern piece. So 1.5 inches would be right here across, and all you do is slide this baby up the 1.5 inches, keeping it on the grain line, and you can skip pinning it. I will not. I will pin it to make sure that things are secure. And so I can see the difference because the fly facing, it kind of dips down. I'm just going to draw in the lines just like that. Grain line, and you just say what your pattern piece is. Mark on it what your pattern piece is. Piece number 20, Butterick B5682, size 20. And make sure you keep your, you know, your marks, your dots, your notches and such. I'm actually gonna move the notch up because it's at the top. I'm just gonna put a line right there. There we go. So as a test, here's your original fly front piece, matched up to the original pattern piece like that. And here is the one that I just created. That does not match up the way it should. Let me see if I did something wrong. Oh, no, I didn't do anything wrong. It extends below the stitching line by the seam allowance. And that's the same thing here. It extends below the stitching line by the seam allowance. So we are a perfect match. What I like to do when I do adjustments like this is I make a note, lengthened 1.5 inches, and we're done. So I did that same technique for this piece as well, and I adjusted by 1.5 inches. So here we have the fly facing and the fly, I think this one is called the fly shield. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. I will cut this out later. Okay, we have two more pieces on the pants front itself that we have to contend with, and that is the pocket lining and the side front. I used the same technique that I did just now to lengthen the pocket lining. As you can see, here's the original piece and the pattern piece. It is 1.5 inches longer, using the exact same method I just did. And the pocket on the side front itself, and this is also 1.5 inches longer. So you really want to pay attention to the fact that you have those peripheral pieces that need to be adjusted if you extend the length of your pattern as well as the width. And this is actually, I'm going to address the width here on this piece because I need 1/4 inch more. My current pair of pants, they fit well, but I feel like I can benefit from another 1/4 inch. And as it so happens, when I looked at the original side front piece, the size 22 cutting line is exactly 1/4 inch wider than the size 20, and they blend to nothing, you know, near the notches. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a piece of paper to the side. I'm going to put this across the top here like that. I know some people like to just kind of wing things. I'm much more of a be as precise as possible kind of person. I figure if you're gonna take the time to buy patterns knowing that they're not gonna fit you, you do the best you can to make sure you get the fit that you want. So for me, this is no problem to do. For others, it might be like, ugh, I don't have time for all of that. You do what works best for you. My trusty marking paper and just extend it. Done. So there's my extra 1/4 inch. Take my ruler, go across. There we go. Extra 1/4 inch. Didn't really take much time at all. So there we go. So this is now the width, now has the extra width that I need and the extra length that I need. So I will take care of these and put these aside. Now there's only one more thing left for me to do. Okay, so I have with me, before I get to the waistband, I have with me 2 pairs of store-bought pants. Okay, there's a side seam here and here, and then there's just the back. And these pants, I don't know where I bought them from, but I've had them for a while. These are from Target, and it's the same thing. There's a side seam here. Oh wow, the sun has come out, things are so much brighter. And there's a side seam here. And so I found that interesting because the pattern piece for these pants is just one long band for the waistband. And like as I said in my previous video when I reviewed my very first pair of these pants, the waistband stretched out. And I think it's because this has such a significant curve in this waistband, being that it's just one long, one long cut of fabric. And it's very, this was a very biasy situation here. And I have a pretty, I have a mommy tummy, I have a tummy, and I don't need anything stretching out around my waist. And so after doing some research, I decided that I would cut this. When I looked at my pants, I decided I would cut this. And so what I did was I did just that. I cut it so into 3 pieces. So this very long side is the back. Yes, center back waistband. So that is this major piece right here. So on the pattern for your size, they are squares, and those squares represent the side seam. So I cut this as one piece, and then I cut it at the side seam. So if you do that, you choose to do that, you must add seam allowance on both new pieces so that the 2 pieces can come back together and they won't be short. So that is what I'm going to show you today. I've already cut it, so I'm not going to bother doing that. But here are the pieces. Here is the back waistband, left side and right side. And so what I've done to make sure that I don't get myself confused, I labeled it as original waistband. I labeled it as it's supposed to be. And then I wrote a note to myself, original waistband modified for better fit. I also labeled the side seams, and I added seam allowance there. So this says waistband 22, so this is 22C, 22A, and 22B, so that I have all 3 pieces. Actually, yeah, so that's good. So since I added a 1/4 inch on the side front of the pants, I also need to add that 1/4 inch back to the pattern. So where I'm going to do that is, I think I'm going to do that here on the back piece, so so that the whole thing extends on both ends 1/8 of an inch in the front and 1/8 of an inch in the back, as opposed to just adding 1/8 of an inch on 2 pieces of paper. I will post a comment somewhere, a follow-up on whether or not that works, but for now that is what I'm going with, because it should work. All right, so I'm going to tape a piece of paper. I'm going to tape a piece of scrap paper. Right here. This ruler has 1/8 inch increments. I really love this ruler, by the way. It came in a pack of 2, and the individual one has it's just a 1-inch ruler, which I keep by my ironing station for small changes. Actually I did that wrong. I think I need to add 1/8 of an inch on each side. So, oh no, I'm correct. 1/4 of an inch there and 1/4 of an inch here. Hold on, baby. Okay, so if for some reason I did this wrong, because I'm adding 1/4 of an inch on both sides, which I don't think I am, but if I'm wrong, if nothing else, I will have more fabric than I need, not less. All right, here I need to continue the curve there, 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 there. Okay, so this should be correct. Added 1/4 of an inch to the left side and 1/4 of an inch to the right side, and so there are 2 pockets, 2 side front pieces, 1/4 of an inch on the left side, 1/4 of an inch on the right side. So I'm fairly certain that I did this correctly. Okay, so the final thing I have to share on this project is narrowing the width of the pants. As I mentioned before, I felt like the original cut of the pants were a little too wide for my liking, and I used one of the pairs of pants that I shared earlier for the waistband to determine the width of the pants. They're my favorite. The blue one in particular is my favorite. I bought that from Target a while back. And so I intend on narrowing the pants by a full inch on all around. So I'm taking 1/2 of an inch in on the front and the back, and the inseam and the outseam. So we'll go with that. Something I thought about after I prepared the pattern was that perhaps this is something that is best done before you do your lengthening and shortening, only because I had a hard time deciding where to put the pins for the pivot and slide. Nancy Zeman says that you should do the mark the 5/8 of an inch at the point before you need to make the adjustments, and so in this case I think that would be maybe the hip line, so I'm not 100% sure. So since I need to make the change at the hemline, I marked 1/2 an inch. I taped the paper onto the trace pattern paper onto the cutting mat so I can't move it. So in any event, I marked 1/2 an inch in on the side seam here, and then 1/2 an inch on the side seam there. And here, can't see where here is. So here I have the pin for the where I'm going to use the pivoting technique. So let's go. Our first 1/2 an inch is at this point right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the pin in place and pivot my cutting line to that 1/2 inch point. Make everything flat. Using my tunic ends, grab the tracing paper and trace the cutting line. So now I'll do the other side in the same way. I have my 1/2 inch marked here. So this time around, I will put the pin at the crotch curve, which is already marked at 5/8 of an inch. Pin it in there, move the paper to the 1/2 inch mark, so the cutting line, the original cutting line, to the 1/2 inch mark. Stick my cans of tuna in place and trace as usual. So there's a bit of a natural place where the curve kind of naturally converges. They come together, which is right here. And to make sure that I had it on the same length for the front and the back, I actually marked it on the pattern already. And so what I'm going to do now is take my tracing ruler, not my tracing ruler, my curve ruler, to smooth out the curve for the whole thing. So on this side, I didn't do as good a job, so but that's okay. What I'll do is I will use the ruler to make sure that the curve is at the same spot. So this is the point where the two lines come together. And so what I'm gonna do is use my curve ruler and make sure that line continues to be smooth all the way down. So that's the one side seam. So now I'm going to do the other side. Okay, to make sure that I have things lined up correctly, that I've made the width changes in the same places, I lined the front and back pieces up together as they would be sewn, made a mark when I did the front piece to indicate where the seams merge together. And so I've transferred that over to make sure that the seams are coming together in the same place. So now I'm going to take my ruler and do my best to make sure that curve blends into the mark that I have on the pattern. And if you get it wrong, use your eraser and do it again. There we go. So here we go. Those match up perfectly. To show you all that I will cut out, which will be all of this right here is going to be gone. And all of this right here is going to be gone. All of that kind of merged up to nothing there, and merges up to nothing there, and it is a straight line across. Yeah, those 2 points match. Well guys, that is everything. I'm going to go ahead and finish up cutting this pattern out, and actually I'm going to move on to the next stage, which is to cut the fabric out. And hopefully I get a chance to sew it up this weekend, and whatever I don't get finished up this weekend, I'll probably work on throughout the week, since that's my preferred method of getting garments made. So if you enjoyed this video, please let me know. If you have any questions, also please let me know down in the comments. And if you've watched this all the way to the very end, thumbs up to you. I really appreciate it. I'm learning as I go, and each time I do make a project, I learn something, I try something, and I figure if I have to make the changes, I may as well share it with those who have similar fitting challenges and want to learn as well. So if you found value in this video, I really hope you just let me know. In the meantime, until my next video, take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one. Again,